Do you think people have to go through pain to be able to connect deeper to themselves and to other people?
I think pain wakes us up to what's in front of us.
Today I'm joined by Allie Michelle. She is a poet, author, and now a fantasy novelist. In this episode, we dive into her creative journey and why storytelling can be one of the most profound tools for healing and reclaiming your voice.
We all, especially now as walking human personal brands, we need a place where all of the ugly gets to belong without judgment, and a journal is such a great way of doing that. The reason we love movies like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or any hero's journey is because all of those archetypes exist within us. We all have the villain inside, and the hero, and the fool, and the wise sage.
For people who are disconnected from their emotions, or they've created a hard heart because of anything that they've been through, what are some of the things that one can do to really start becoming comfortable with tapping into their emotions?
I'm Radhi, and on my podcast, A Really Good Cry, we embrace the real, the messy, and the beautiful, providing a space for raw, unfiltered conversations that celebrate vulnerability and allow you to tune in to learn, connect, and find comfort together.
Oh my gosh, Allie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to speak to you. I feel like I've known you for such a long time, but we've never actually sat down properly to have a conversation. So I feel like this is a great way for us to do that.
Yeah.
I got to binge so much of your stuff as I've been trying to research and understand how incredible you are. And it has been such a great journey, not just to observe you, but also for myself. So much of what you write about and speak about, I feel like you make people feel so understood and so seen just by the words that you use. So first of all, thank you.
Thank you.
And it is such a gift that you have that you're sharing with everyone. So you have 3 books, is it out?
4.
Oh my gosh. So you have 3 poetry books, and then you've just written a novel, right?
Yes.
A fantasy novel.
Yes.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. I need to know how you got into poetry and then what brought you to writing a fantasy novel.
I got into poetry because I had really bad social anxiety as a kid. So I used to write the kids in my class letters instead of speak to them.
No way.
Yeah. And then I started writing little poems, and I don't know, it just kind of became a career by accident. But I was writing poetry from 9 years old.
Oh my gosh, do you still have some of them?
I have all my old journals from the time I was 5.
Do you?
Just a whole library shelf of them.
And was journaling at that age, was that something you got recommended, or was that something you just felt the urge and the desire to put pen to paper?
My mom gave it to me, I think, because she just knew somehow that it would help me. It was one of the only things that unwound those anxious knots inside of me.
I can so relate. I feel like when I've gotten into this habit because I used to be this person who, whenever someone would upset me, or whenever I'd go through something with a friend, or whether it was in a relationship, I would constantly want to tell them how much they've hurt me. My natural instinct would be to blurt out in whatever words came out of my mouth, saying, you did this and you did this and you should feel bad because of this. And as years went on, it made me realize how little that helped compared to having a moment to myself or days to myself where I'm processing it and writing it out. And so I learned over time that you don't often have to send that message to someone. You don't have to send the message. You don't have to let them know they've hurt you. But by releasing it onto pen to paper, it actually can relieve so much of what you're feeling. So I can so relate to that, because I think that that's a big thing that people miss. You always think that you have to express it to someone, but sometimes you just need to express it.
That's most of what it is. And I think we all, especially now as walking human personal brands, we need a place where all of the ugly gets to belong without judgment. And a journal is such a great way of doing that. And so is writing, where you can release all of those darker emotions and thoughts and feelings, so that way you're not acting from that place.
Do you find it easy to get to a point where you aren't acting, even when you know it's just you? Because I find when I first started journaling, and I started at a much later age than you did, but I was noticing myself, hiding myself from myself. Does that make sense? I would be writing and writing and writing, and it would almost become like a piece that I was going to be submitting versus actually digging in and finding a way to truly see myself and truly see what I'm thinking. So for anybody who's starting out with journaling, or starting out trying to understand their emotions, how can you get past that surface level? What are the tools or techniques one can use to stop having that front layer or surface face that you put on?
I think the desire to be a good person can sometimes stop us from being a whole person. And so I would say to lean into the ugly, because I can only control the fact that I know I can be, can I swear on here?
Yeah.
I know I can be a judgmental asshole, and that's how I control it, because I know that's there and I've admitted it to myself. And so I can only control the behaviors that I admit to myself. I call like the shadow a little monster, and I turn it into a little character, and I'm like, it's just my little monster acting up.
like
That's
that.
fine. But I know it's there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times when we're journaling, we want to be flowery and be like, oh no, it was just this, and I learned so much in this. But if you give just a very personal space to yourself to be a whole person, then you're not walking around in the world unconsciously letting those behaviors rule you so much.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this weekend quite a lot, actually, because I actually get over things quite easily. Like if someone's upset me or hurt me, or if I've gone through something with someone, I usually get over that very fast. But I was noticing that there were certain people or certain things that were repeating in my head over and over again. And I wasn't used to that, because I was like, oh, I'm someone who lets go of everything, and so I'm fine. But I was noticing that person or those people kept coming up in my mind as something that every time I would hear their name, it would create like a negative energy or negative emotion in my body or in my mind. And I was speaking to Jay, and I was like, I actually don't know why I feel that way about those people. And I came to the realization that I really had to break down my insecurities, the things I feel about myself that actually end up being a reflection of why I don't like them or why they trigger me so deeply. And I don't think I'd allowed myself to, because I always used to be like, it was them. It's what they do. It's their personality. They're what trigger me. But you can only be triggered by someone because you've got that trigger in you. And like, it takes so long to get to that realization. But now that I've realized, I'm like, oh, okay. So now I need to dig deeper and figure out, why do those things about them really upset me? And what is it about myself that I need to change to be able to not have those things trigger me externally? But how would you recommend people identify their triggers and then start to process them through writing or through any other tools that you've developed?
I think the best writing comes from a strong emotional charge. And the reason we love movies like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or any hero's journey is because all of those archetypes exist within us. We all have the villain inside, and the hero and the fool and the wise sage. And so if I'm looking at someone and I'm villainizing them, that's in me too.
Oh,
and
wait, archetypes.
Yes.
I need you to tell me more about archetypes, because I think I saw you speak on them before. Could you explain them, where they've come from, and how they're useful?
Yeah, the hero's journey comes from Joseph Campbell, and it's just the writing structure that pretty much any movie you can think of, whether it's a memoir like Eat, Pray, Love or something like Harry Potter, all of it uses the hero's journey. Oh. And so there's the hero who starts out in an ordinary world, and then there's an inciting incident, and they go into an extraordinary adventure that transforms them. And along the way, they meet the sage, that would be like Gandalf or Dumbledore, and they have the friends, and they have the fool like Rafiki in The Lion King, or the villain like Voldemort. But Carl Jung, the psychologist, believed that we resonate with it because all of those archetypes exist within our own psyche.
Wow, that's so true.
Yeah.
And so you're saying we all have all of them, but do we display different versions in different times of our life, or are you predominantly one in, most of the time?
I like archetypes because it's not set in stone. It's not like astrology or the Enneagram or human design. It's just a natural expression of what you're trying to integrate within your own psyche at the time. So if I'm trying to integrate the fool, maybe I'm in a very serious sage-like position where I'm projecting wisdom and a centeredness, and I need to lighten up, and I need to be willing to be seen the fool. And that would be the medicine there. Or if I'm the ruler, maybe I'm in a stage of really serving my people and stepping up as a leader. Life is such a fluid experience, and recognizing what archetype is trying to integrate is really helpful.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like you might be the ruler with your children, but then maybe you have to become one of the other ones when you're at work or with your partner. So I imagine you can go through different archetypes throughout the day, in different parts of your day, if not in different months or years.
Yeah, every person pulls out a different part of you. Like with Alexis, I often become the magician, which is like the healer. And she's the ruler, which is the leader. And so the two of us understand through those archetypes how to better relate to each other in a compassionate way, versus that's not who I am with like a romantic partner or a different friend.
How was it writing the fantasy novel as opposed to doing poetry? Did you feel like there was a shift in the way that you had to write and your imagination, or did they kind of flow into the other?
It didn't flow. It was like Mount Everest.
Really?
And I could not see the top, and I didn't even know I was doing it. I just knew it was very important that I do it. And that's so often the case with artists, is you don't know what the result is going to be. But at least for the sake of how it will change you as a person, it is so worth it.
And what is the fantasy novel about? I know that it's Legends of Lemuria.
Yeah.
Did I say it right?
Yeah, you said it right.
Amazing.
It's this girl who is essentially living in a future dystopia, and she's playing the world's most addictive and illegal virtual reality game in an underground speakeasy.
Cool.
And she discovers a map when she wins the game that leads to a real fantasy world with dragons and two princes who try to win her heart. But it blends all the fantastical elements that I love with the wisdom of the self-help world. But for me, I struggle to digest information without a story attached to it.
That's so interesting. In my culture, we follow or study the Vedas. It's where most of our spiritual knowledge comes from. And all the Vedas are told in stories.
Yeah.
They're all told, like the lessons that are taught are all told through kings that have done certain things or people in different positions in their life. But there's always the lesson or what we're supposed to be learning from it all comes through storytelling. And I've always found that so true. It's always my mom, even when she would want to teach me a lesson, she'd like make up someone to be like, well, I heard that this person did this once, and like trying to get me not to do something through telling a story of somebody else who's experienced it or been through it. And so, sometimes you have to either hear it, experience it, or see it for yourself to really take on the lesson that you're supposed to be learning. I feel like there's just so many different types of people and we all learn in different ways, right?
Yeah, but we get to borrow each other's perspective through storytelling and live 1,000 lives in one. I get to ride dragons, and I get to go to Hogwarts, and I get to, be some wise sage that's been meditating for 5,000 years. And it's almost like a cheat code.
Yeah, that's so true. I was mentioning before that your poetry feels like you understand people so deeply or understand emotions so deeply. For people who are disconnected from their emotions or have had to put up like, what's the word for them, like walls, or they've created a hard heart because of anything that they've been through, what are some of the things that one can do to really start becoming comfortable with tapping into their emotions?
I think if you can look at it through the lens of every emotion is like a different instrument in a symphony. Maybe the violin is your grief and the piano is your joy. And looking at it that way so that they all weigh equally on a scale. Because I think so often we're chasing happiness, and it's the act of chasing that actually robs us of contentment. And so I think if you can really embrace the human experience and, like I said, focus on being a whole person versus this ideal, it makes life a lot more bearable.
And you created a journal. Would you say that when you journal yourself, do you use a lot of prompts, or do you find you just free write from whatever comes to your mind? Have you found one or the other more beneficial?
I actually now, when I'm journaling, try to tell the story of my day as though it's a hero's journey.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that done before.
It's like my practice ground. Even if it's mundane and I went to the grocery store, I still want to make sure I captured what it smelled like, what it tasted like, how I physically felt, because it's the practice of paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you find that how do you go from being somebody who is so distanced from their own feelings to creating more meaningful relationships with other people? Because I find there's one thing about connecting to yourself, but then a whole other story is connecting to other people. And so have you found practices of becoming more vulnerable or to opening your heart out to somebody else, whether it's in relationships or family, friends, or partners, anything that can help you be more vulnerable or create a more meaningful relationship with someone?
Yeah, I usually find for me, I just need the 10 seconds of courage to start. Because starting is the most terrifying part where I feel like I'm going to die. It's like an ice bath when you first get in. You're like, nope, I'm so sorry. Surely not. And then after a minute, you're like, you know what? I didn't die. I can do this. And so if I want to create a moment of vulnerability, I have to be the one to initiate that and have the 10 seconds of courage. Even if it is coming out terribly and I have to face the other direction to say it, I still have to say it. Because one thing I've realized is people tend to tell me that I'm very composed or mysterious.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to relate to because it's like a one-sided mirror where I'm seeing other people and they're not seeing me.
Right.
And therefore we can't connect. And so I have to be the one to initiate showing my humanity.
Yes. I noticed that when I went through a lot of social anxiety, I was actually just thinking about this morning. One thing I noticed I had to do when I went into situations where I was feeling really anxious, so whether it was parties or events, I would have to tell somebody there that I was anxious.
Yeah.
Like just starting off a conversation with, I'm actually really nervous to be here. And that would make all the difference because normally that other person is probably anxious too. And they're like, oh, I can relate. Or they'll be like, don't worry, stick with me the whole night. We're going to be fine. But that moment of sharing your heart allow someone else to open up theirs. And you're right, I think it ends up being this beautiful cycle of if you can take that one little step, it also just creates more meaningful conversations. Like, I think I heard you speak about small talk. I can't remember where on like another episode or another podcast that you did. And I think a big part of connection that we lack when we go out to these events or go out to places is you don't feel like you've actually had an exchange. You feel like you've had words that have come out of your mouth, but have you had a heart exchange? Are you someone who struggles with small talk, and how have you managed to change that dynamic when you go into places like and talk to people?
I think my sense of humor is like my only way of surviving. And I see you do this too when you walk in a room and you start cracking jokes. And I'm like, that's the only way to do it is to just tell the truth in disguise of a joke. But I think in LA and just Western culture especially, we're all walking bios with resumes ready in our conversation. And anything that can bring even a moment of humanity is worth it and makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, they say most people who are artists end up having a lot of pain to create beauty from it. Do you think people have to go through pain to be able to connect deeper to themselves and to other people? And what was your journey of the pain that you've been through to create the beautiful words that you now have?
I think pain wakes us up to what's in front of us. And it is the easiest way to shatter the glass wall that's around your heart. I think if you stay there, it becomes very dangerous. And that's the whole Club 27 of like artists that have killed themselves at 27. It's why there's so many tortured artists out there, because you create that association. But I don't think it has to come from there. You can write about joy with as much sincerity as you do grief. You don't have to live a tortured life to be inspired by it. You just have to pay attention.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, I think we're so used to hearing people. You feel a lot more emotion these days when you see someone's pain. But how beautiful if you could feel that emotion when you see someone's joy. There's actually this word in Sanskrit called mudita. I actually have it tattooed on me. But because in the English language, there's not really a word for feeling someone else's joy, deeply feeling someone else's joy. And in Sanskrit, the word mudita means to feel someone else's joy intensely and deeply. And I was like, that is so beautiful. I think we're so used to being okay with feeling other people's pain. But when it comes to joy, there's often this feeling of jealousy or not feeling content in yourself, which then makes you not unable to feel content with someone else's contentness.
Yeah.
And what kind of journey, when you're trying to go through negative emotions and turn them into positive ones, have you found there's been a good tool or mechanism to be able to do that? Or what practices do you have in place for yourself, like on a day-to-day basis, to turn these shadow emotions into positive ones?
I think I do that through art. If I can write a poem about it, if I can tell a story about it, the pain becomes beauty.
Yeah.
And so it's not that the pain becomes happiness, but it becomes beauty. And that is all I'm really trying to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a We Are Warriors is your community, right?
Yeah.
How long has that been going on for?
Like 4.5 years.
Oh my gosh. And is it just a whole community of women?
Just women telling their stories every week.
And what have you found that women in your community, or I guess it's a good capture of the larger society of women, what are the things that you find women struggle with the most within the community?
Feeling like they're too much. You know, feeling like they're too intense or their emotions are too much. I think every woman I know, there's something inside of us that feels like we're just teetering on the edge of madness. We've been called crazy so many times that we're like, surely this is the day that I finally lose it.
Yeah.
When in reality, you know, no one would ever say that about a volcano exploding or a tornado or lightning striking.
Yeah.
They would just say that's nature. That's the beauty and the power of nature. And it is equal parts beauty and terror. And I think a woman is the closest thing to that.
Do you think that a lot of it comes from this constant battle of the masculine and feminine energy, and how I feel like a lot of men don't realize that we all have both in us? And some women don't even realize that we have both masculine and feminine in us. And how does one balance those energies when the world predominantly functions in a masculine energy?
You know, I think for me at least, it feels a little like archetypes, where I try to just pay attention to what the moment is asking of me. Like if I'm doing taxes, I probably need some more masculine energy to force myself to sit there and do it.
Yeah.
Versus if I'm writing a poem, I probably need the feminine fluidity. And I was talking with my best friend the other day, and he said, we want one without the other. We want a man who's confident without being bulldozed. We want a woman who's soft and tender without the emotional world.
Yeah.
When in reality, every single energy has its own double-edged sword. And I guess that's my main message I try to get across, is in the embracing the both and.
Yeah, I think in one of your, I don't know where it is that I heard you say this, but you have to find the strength it takes to be soft. Could you expand on that a little bit more and explain how a woman, if they feel like they are in their masculine energy, how can they soften and feel like that's okay?
I think softening can feel like life or death for us sometimes. You know, those moments where you need to be vulnerable and you need to say the thing, but your heart is pounding and your palms are sweating and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this one. This might be the day. And then when you do it, it oftentimes opens up the richest intimacy and connection.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's exposure therapy.
And what is that? What is that? What is exposure therapy?
Same way of getting in an ice bath when you don't want to, but you know it's good for you. Or doing breath work, anything that you resist, there's so much power on the other side of it. And for me, exercising that vulnerable muscle when it's wise to, you know, I think that's also another key, is not showing all of yourself to everyone all the time, because I don't think that's particularly safe.
Yeah.
So you have to utilize discernment in that way.
Yeah, I like what you said about when it feels appropriate to. I think I changed the wording, but I think sometimes we've gotten into a state of being so masculine because we've been vulnerable to the wrong people who aren't able to handle the other part of us. And so it's like, it's almost like a flower. Like you're so delicate, especially when you are in that state. It is a more sensitive state to be in. The feminine energy is flowing and sensitive, and that is the nature of it. But if you are exposing that to somebody who isn't ready to appreciate it, that's when I think the walls can start going up, and you then don't feel comfortable sharing that with anybody else.
Yeah, and then it creates this belief of like, see, I'm not safe. I've proved myself right. When in reality, you know, every person's going to be able to hold a different container. And I guess what I've been doing recently is trusting my animal body of like, okay, I know within 5 minutes of meeting someone if I feel safe with them.
Yeah.
It's so instinctive.
It's so instinctive. I go through situations where I think it and I'm like, no, I'm being silly.
Yeah.
Like, don't listen to it. You're being so silly. That's not true. And then 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, you're like, I should have listened to my gut.
Yeah.
I should have listened to my gut. And I think that comes down to a lot of alignment and really tuning into what your, you know, super soul, your subconscious is telling you. But how do you think someone can know whether they are, one, in alignment, or two, how do you know you're really being you? I know it's a silly question, but I find sometimes I'm like, is this me, or is this a version of me I think I should be, or a version of me that I'm putting out there because I want it to be me? Like, have you had a feeling of where you're like, this is me in my authentic self, and what to you does that feel like?
It feels really spacious and like there's room to breathe. If I can't really breathe and I feel like a porcelain doll and I have my little cool jacket on that I've zipped up and I can't, like, you know, there's just, I'm rigid. I can't breathe. I can't be myself. There's no permission to step outside and break character. Versus when I'm actually being myself, it feels like I have all the space in the world.
And what did you, as you've gone through life, and I'm sure so many different things, what were some of the things you did to get to know yourself throughout over the years?
That's a good question. I think my art has kept me honest. I think writing and telling stories, because it's a constant, digging for the truth. And so I know I can feel it when I wrote a poem and it's not the full honest truth.
Yes.
And it forces me to go back and be like, really? So I think the way some people look at meditation or spiritual practices, I look at my art as well. And I find that to be my tether back to myself.
Do you find it hard sharing your poems because it's so much of you? Or is it quite a freeing process to like put that out there?
I don't know if freeing would be the word. If it's really honest, it's terrifying and I still feel anxious sharing it. But I've done it enough times where I just know I have a higher duty and honor as an artist to tell the truth and share it.
Your spoken word, where were you on stage where you did a spoken word, you and Alexis together?
Oh, the Poetry Lounge.
That was one of the most spectacular things I've ever experienced watching online. Like
God.
Best use of my time ever scrolling through social media was watching that. If anybody's listening, you have to go check it out. But do you generally just memorize your poems? Do you just have them in your heart and ready to go?
I have to memorize them because if I memorize them, then I'm not thinking about the performance aspect of it. And my goal is to not perform when I perform. And if I'm looking at a thing, it takes away 90% of my presence.
It's so true. I've been doing a bit more speaking on stages lately. And even if I know what I'm going to say, there's this feeling of having it as a crutch. But as soon as those cards are in my hand, I can't help myself but look at them 90% of the time. And you're so right. As soon as you let go of that, you come into yourself. Like you're not in your mind, you're in your heart. But as soon as I look down at my cards, it's back to you even say things differently. My vocal cords completely change. The way that I'm presenting things completely change. It makes such a difference to not be held to the words that are on the paper.
Yeah, because you're meant to kind of react to life and the world around you. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you're in constant dance and response with the moment in front of you versus this pre-planned thing. And so for me, if I'm willing to be in a free fall, that's my favorite times of my performances or panels or whatever it might be, is being in the free fall.
You and I know I've only seen you and Alexis together, but I imagine you have such wonderful friendships because of the kind of heart that you have. How have you navigated female friendships? I think a lot of people struggle with that. I've had friends come to LA and the reason they wanted to leave is purely because they haven't been able to create meaningful friendships. Could you share a little bit about how you've created deep connections with people over long periods of times, and for anybody who needs advice on creating friendships?
For me, it's been creating a subculture within the environment here. And the way I could best describe it is people first. I will put down my work to go help a friend.
Right.
I will let them stay on my couch. I will go drop them off at LAX and not tell them to Uber. I will go out of my way for the people that I love, because I look at my heart like this little kingdom, and, the people in it are mine to look after and take care of. And I think there's this kind of odd thing happening right now where we all have to be independent and we don't need each other when we're such social creatures. And imagine if we all tended to each other that way. It would be a very different world. So for me, I think just prioritizing it.
I think that the way that we have lack of interaction in person is probably the key reason why we all have so much more anxiety these days. Because I think back in the day, I think about it when my grandma was living in villages in Africa, let's say, she constantly, or even when she was a child and she was living in India, she was saying that her doors would be wide open. Her mum would be cooking and there'd be you wouldn't even know who's walking through the door. The neighbors' kids would come in, her friends would come in, they would be making enough food on a day-to-day basis to feed whoever came through the door. And it was just that natural, where everyone's doors were always open. They'd look after each other's children. It was just full community living. That was just the norm there. Now you think about it, it's not only do we have front doors that are always closed, we have gates in front of the front doors. And then if we do see people, it's never, a lot of the time you see people on the street and sometimes people don't even say hello to each other. And I think because the norm of not being in connection with people, that when you do end up connecting with people or seeing people, that's why we feel anxious, because it doesn't feel like the norm anymore. So I always think like you have to start just creating these conversations with people, even if it's random people on the street. I'm like, let me just say hello.
Yeah.
Or like start making communication with people a normality versus making it an abnormality. And that's why we end up feeling so insecure in our friendships, in our relationships, or in our communities, and not building meaningful connections with them.
Yeah, like I did a spoken word video recently, and I hired this older grandmother to play me in my 90s. And she has Alzheimer's.
Oh.
And so she would go in and out of realizing where she was, but she does these acting jobs, and she wasn't concerned about it. Like, it wasn't sad. She'd be like, where am I? And I'd be like, LA. And then she'd be like, ah. And I asked her about it, and she said, what are memories? You're the people you love, not your memories.
Mm.
And I found that to be so true. In the moments where I really look at my life, I just feel proud of how I love my people far more than anything I've accomplished.
And I feel like that's all people really remember, let's be honest.
That's it.
Has there been a topic that you found the hardest to share in poetry, in person when you're sharing your poetry? Has there been other specific topics that end up being triggering or difficult to share?
The most recent one is always the most difficult to share because it's the closest to creation and to my personal experience.
Do you have any that you could share with us?
Yeah.
And I would love that if you don't mind.
Of course.
Okay, amazing.
Okay.
Anything that you feel like.
Okay. I guess this is on topic. Should I look at you? Should I look at? I never know what to do.
Anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, I'll look at you.
Okay.
You're easy to look at. You have a nice comforting face. Every person we meet, we silently ask, will you love me? The question lies behind every action like 1,000 scattered clues we hope someone will follow all the way into our heart. But independence would convince us that we don't need each other. Like love isn't as vital as the oxygen that we breathe, so we play little games. Asking a question and a joke we tell, a piece of art we create, the music we listen to and the success we try to create. When did love become something we don't deserve? When did fear start pulling our strings and warp love into a contest of who cares the least? When did heartbreak become a shameful thing instead of a badge of honor that we tried for something? When did we start making a bond of each other? A successful relationship doesn't mean forever, it means transformation. Alone is the only time my heart isn't on loan, but the only way to escape this life unscathed is to never care at all. And so I say to you, break my heart. Break it so wide open that the whole world can fit between the pieces. When did love become something we don't deserve? When did love become a dirty word?
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I feel like you really go into a different zone when you're sharing your poetry. Like, it's so magical to see you like compose yourself and then share from a place of authenticity. Like, I don't feel any ego, no like trying to show up in a certain way. It's like the words are just flowing through you. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I guess one of the images I get is my best friend's a dancer, and I asked him how he just does improv out of nowhere. And he's like, oh, that's just the thing I've practiced holding the floodgates open the most for. And I love that image of an artist dedicated to their craft. They just know how to hold the walls open for something greater to come through.
Yes.
So the greatest masters of their craft have the strongest ability to push those gates even wider open.
To become a vessel.
Yeah, exactly.
Just channeling.
And that kind of protects you because, you know, you don't have to be the greatest poet on earth. You just have to hold the gates open.
And you kind of realize it's not you. That's the biggest part. I've found that the only way I can really let go and do things I'm scared of, or do things that really I don't think I would have ever thought I could do, is by realizing that it's not just me. Like, it's not, or sometimes it's not even me. It is just someone, it's just God or the universe working through you. I remember hearing this once by one of my teachers, Radhi Swami, about being a bridge. Like, you don't have to be the teacher. You don't have to be the person who knows everything, who has everything, but you can be the bridge for another person to get them to another level. And then someone else will take over from there and they'll take them across another bridge. And I love that. It's like what your words are doing is taking someone to another place where then maybe they'll meet someone or open their heart to somebody else. It's like the ripple effect that words have are so powerful.
Yeah. And that's all it is. It goes back to looking after your own corner of the world. Like, do I think I'm saving the entire planet by writing a poem? Probably not. But that's my bridge.
Yeah. I don't think one single thing can save the entire world in one go anyway. I think it is. And that's why I think people get overwhelmed. They're like, how am I going to help all these people? How can I help more people? How can I help the most amount of people with the least amount of effort? But actually it's the most amount of effort with multiple people, let me rephrase that. It's having small effort with multiple people in those ways that can then create those effects for them to go on to do that to other people.
Yeah.
You've been so amazing. This has been so wonderful. I really want to, could you share your books, all 4 of them, what their names are and what people can experience from them? So that's number 1. So please share your books.
I have 3 poetry collections. Okay. So there's Explorations of a Cosmic Soul, which I wrote when I was 19. So don't expect very much from it. Yep.
Wow.
The Rose That Blooms in the Night, and then The Words Left Unspoken is the most recent one I've done for poetry. And then the fantasy book is Legends of Lemuria.
And they're all out.
They're all out.
And what in your heart is, like, what's your end goal, or like, what's your desire with the words that you speak? Where do you envision, or like, what's your manifestation for yourself, for your future? I always love hearing this. And what's your dream?
What's my dream?
Yeah.
It's so funny. It doesn't really matter how much like success happens. The things that fill me up are the people I love, spending time in nature, and writing stories. And I'm really just down for whatever adventure those 3 things take me on. And I like not knowing now.
Yes, every time someone asks me like, what are you thinking about doing in the next like year or 2? And I was like, honestly, I have no idea.
No idea.
I know that I'll go with what happens, but I don't know I don't know what's planned in my future right now. All I can do is take part in the present.
That's all we have. Yeah. And I know the things I love and the ways I like to spend my time, but I'm down for the mystery.
And can people come and watch you anywhere? Do you mainly just do your spoken word in LA, or do you travel?
I will be doing some shows in LA soon, so you'll find that on my Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to come watch you. I have to.
Yeah,
I can't believe I haven't seen you perform live yet.
Oh, we're going to have like a pianist and a violinist. It's going to be so fun.
Oh, okay, I'm definitely coming. Yeah. Thank you so much for this heart-opening conversation. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so happy we got to sit down to do this.
Thank you for having me.